All right. Well, hey everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Our roundtables are virtual forums that bring together category leaders, industry provocateurs, and bold innovators to look up, out, and ahead, understanding how our industry is evolving and what that means for the brands that serve them. So, a lot of you here today know one of us, know Adam or I, or know LPK. But if it's your first time, welcome. Here at LPK, we call ourselves a creative consultancy. So, what that means is through deep discovery and beautiful expression, we help businesses know, grow, and innovate for their ever-changing consumers and customers, driving future brand growth and cultural relevance. And believe it or not, we can trace our roots back to 1919. So our institutional knowledge and talent is unmatched and it's always evolved with the times. We have been on the front lines for over a century of consumer change. And what sets us apart as an agency is that we leave no unknowns. So we dive deep into category, competition, and culture to develop a full picture of the context of any problem. We create with inspired expression, so with precision, humanity, and taste. We translate complexity into evocative, creative solutions that match audience desires, driving brand growth and cultural resonance. And we're future fluent, so we track what's at the leading edge of a category and forecast how consumer behavior will shift into the future so that we can prepare brands to thrive. To that end, we like to say here that we create future obsession. So we believe that this is the very thing that every business should be focused on right now. Solutions that solve your consumer's next problem. Acting today to assure relevance tomorrow, which is why we are all signed in today to explore how two little letters, A and I, will change the creative landscape for our brands now and into the future. All right, time for some introductions. My name's David Volker. Excited to be here with you all today. I'm the vice president of our design group here at LPK. And for the last 18 months or so, I've been partnering with Adam Sievering on experimenting and exploring what AI can do for our teams, our brands, and the creativity we approach every project with. Over the past 20 years, I've been lucky enough to work at LPK on a wide range of things, from CPG to brand identity systems, from male grooming, alc, non-alc beverage, food, sporting goods. I'm a proud graduate of the University of Cincinnati's College of Design, Architecture, Art, and Planning, and a good chunk of my free time is spent hanging out with my two young children, generating mid-journey images of our 2-year-old Yorkie with hilarious facial expressions. So if you hear some barking in the background, apologies. That's the Yorkie. Pass it off to you, Adam, to introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Adam Sievering, copy director and creative R&D lead at LPK. I'm a storyteller by trade and focus on helping brands define their voice and craft their narratives and connect with their audience through everything from campaigns to video scripts to big ideas and naming. As creative R&D lead, I research how tools like AI can push that storytelling forward and help to develop strategies for creative application. Uh, Personally, I love a good rabbit hole to tumble down, and for the past few years, generative AI has absolutely been my go-to fix. So lots of my free time is spent creating bots, making bots hallucinate, and creating songs, music for bands that I only wish existed.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Adam. Today we're going to dive into something that we think here at LPK is a crucial skill for the future of the creative industry. That's obviously AI. By the end of this presentation, we aim to show you all how we took this really giant subject and not only familiarized our entire team with its capabilities, but started to integrate it as a tool in our daily workflow. Here's how we're going to break up the flow of our presentation today. First, we're gonna set the scene, run through a bit of context. Next, we'll run through team Ingenuity and how we operationalized AI within our agency. Then Adam's going to jump in, take us through how we used an AI experiment to bring a new brand to life. And then finally, we'll end on a point of view around using AI as a tool and then answer any questions that you all may have. So let's get started here and set the scene. First off, why is this even important to talk about? When we were conceiving the idea for this roundtable, we even kind of joked here internally, does the world really need another AI roundtable? It's just a subject that we see so much about, and in one way, it's kind of seems like it's jumped the shark. It's become an overused buzzword across many different industries, and the brand design world is no exception. I'm kind of a born skeptic. When I hear about the next big thing, I always get a little bit leery, but I do think this is the start of a new chapter in our profession. As many others have noted, this is our Macintosh moment. I'm sure 30 plus years ago, when Photoshop was invented, it felt a little bit like cheating to use it in your design process. AI to me at this point feels a little bit like cheating now to me personally. But fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, cheaters often win, and this new tech is certainly worth paying attention to. When the computer was introduced, it was cumbersome, it was complicated, it was huge, it was expensive. It really didn't aid creativity all that much. So we had to dive in ourselves to see if generative AI was similar. And of course, there were plenty of barriers to introducing this new tech into our company, some of which you might be dealing with or thinking about yourself. First and foremost, we had to squash this heavy little myth from Robert Atkinson, who proposes that AI is going to kill us. So that's a rough one to start with. Then we had to get over the notion that AI doesn't require humans. But without humans, AI would have no data to learn about the world. It needs us for now. At this time, we're smarter than AI still, so take advantage while you still can. And then we heard a lot about how has kind of peaked. It's not going to get any better. While it's true that the growth, I think, will naturally start slowing, we're really just at the beginning. And then finally, obviously the big one, the elephant in the room to talk about as a company here at LPK was that AI was going to steal our jobs someday. My friend Terry Campbell has a great quote about this. He says, "AI won't steal your job, but someone using AI will." So once we cleared all those hurdles internally, the next big one was this term itself. One of the biggest successes we had as a company, at a company level, was reframing how we think about these two words. Semantically, this term's really scary. It's why there are a lot of skeptics out there, and the word alone's a major detractor that causes fear. As humans, we're almost pre-wired to hate this term artificial. So we asked our team here to shift their mentality from being artificial intelligence to augmented intelligence. Former IBM CEO Jeannie Rometty said if she could go back in time and do it all over again, this is the term that she'd land on, as opposed to artificial intelligence. I think AI is going to be pitched to us through stories about optimization, about speed, about replacing mundane tasks in our day. And it's being sold to us as a business case, really. But the truth is, the power of AI and creativity is thinking about it just as another tool. It's a really cool tool that augments the other ones that we use on a daily basis as designers, like Illustrator, Photoshop, or sketchbooks, or our brains. So I think if we use this new tool in addition to all the things that we already do really well as creatives, like think, like design, like write, our ability to form judgments and critical opinions, we're going to find new and exciting ways to do creative work. And then finally, before we move on to the next section, no agency presentation is complete without a good iceberg analogy. This one's no different. Has to be said, this is just the tip of the iceberg on how this tech is going to change our workflow, our industry, probably our lives moving forward. It's important to note before we dive into this content, we aren't tech experts here at LPK, and this presentation really represents one moment in time. With how fast this all is moving, it might all change by tomorrow. This talk will be instantly out of date, but you got to start somewhere. And then on to the next section. So AI and team ingenuity. One giant barrier that we're always hearing about from our clients is that AI is such an enormous, heavy topic that they don't know where to start, right? There's new news and new tools and new opinions about AI daily. So it's just kind of an intimidating thing to dive into and start learning about. So I thought it'd be useful to quickly run you all through how we successfully went about that here at LPK, start operationalizing AI within our walls. Of course, it's always helpful to take big, complex issues and try to break them down into smaller buckets. As designers, we're really good at this exercise. We're used to doing it daily. So the first thing we did internally was survey the ever-changing landscape of AI tools and theory. It seemed like every day when we were running this experiment, there was a new tool coming out. We read, we researched anything we could find on the topic, and really found that there were three emerging categories that they all fell into. The first one's automation. So tools that were taking repetitive tasks that you do daily and using AI to mechanize them so that you can focus on things of greater priority. In short, it really helped creates capacity. We see this a lot in how Apple is selling us Apple Intelligence. It's a tool to summarize all the information that we are forced to consume daily. That second bucket you see in the middle there is using AI tools to expand capabilities. So helping you or your company enhance that what you can do. Internally here, it helped us create apps, create websites, take static brand assets and put them in motion in ways that we never truly did before. And then third, we saw a lot of people writing about using AI to expand human consciousness. Here's where the tool can help offer us new experiences or enhance our creativity. And by doing this exercise, it allowed us to pinpoint not only how we wanted to use AI at LPK, but why we were doing this as well. So as we, survey these three buckets, we don't do a lot of automated tasks as designers here. And then expanding human consciousness was just kind of an audacious goal when learning about something new. So we really focused in on that middle section and enhancing our capabilities as we dove into this new world. So once we knew how and why we were going to explore AI, our next activity focused around asking this simple question: how can we use AI in our day-to-day work at LPK? And we started answering that question by mapping out a workflow that was very familiar to us. And I can't harp on this step enough. By starting with a framework that was familiar, it made learning new tools along each stage less daunting. I recommend staying broad strokes with your workflow. Don't get too detailed. Don't get too granular so that you can allow room for magic to happen throughout each stage. But here you can kind of see how we took a very generalized view of the productization process and used it as scaffolding to build our experiments around. And then this slide here, this slide's a bit of an eye chart, but it shows all the planning that we put into launching this experiment internally. By organizing a series of 2-week, very, very structured sprints, we could focus each stage in our workflow to keep this process familiar. So whether it was, creating a product idea, naming a brand, bringing it to life visually, every one of these sprints was rooted in something that we have a long history of doing, right? That was very familiar to us. So our measurable goals over this 90-day experiment were really twofold. One, it was to test as many AI tools on the market as we could, and then rank them on a series of metrics. By doing that, we, could kind of vet each one of these tools, see which ones we wanted to dive deeper into. Like I said before, these new tools were coming out daily, and we needed a kind of a rubric of sorts to see which ones were worth our time moving forward. And then second, we wanted to test how far these tools could truly take us in a real world scenario before human intervention was needed, right? So if we wanted to squash this myth that AI was going to take our jobs, we had to test it and see if, AI even needed us as humans to intervene. So that was kind of the process we took to introduce these experiments in a very, very structured environment. Before Adam dives into some of the outputs of that experiment, I want to hit on two things that we learned at this stage in the process. One, we learned that language models, particularly ChatGPT that we're using, they love frameworks as inputs. It helps them organize their outputs in ways that are familiar to us. Lucky enough for us, brand design agencies also love frameworks. So it's a match made in heaven. I'm sure your agency like ours have no shortage of worksheets, pyramids, wheels, canvases that we could feed into this machine and then use our years of collective institutional knowledge to judge if those outputs were good or bad. So dive into those old presentations, dust off all those old framework slides that you have laying around, and see how ChatGPT responds to them. And then second, I want to harp on this point again. Root your experiments in the familiar. Not everything should feel new and daunting when you're diving into AI. Remember to focus on why and how you want to use it, as opposed to just using generative AI because LinkedIn or your boss says you should. Focus on what outcomes you want to achieve using new AI programs, and I think you'll find it much easier to get started that way. All right, now with that set up, setting some scenes, start getting an idea around how we started introducing AI into our company. I'd like to now pass it over to Adam to take you through some of the outputs and some of the learnings through our experiments once we started getting into this process.
Yeah, so going back to what David was talking about earlier, there are basically these three dueling narratives that are driving conversations around AI right now. So one is about doing the same for less. This is the efficiency play. The other is about doing more with the same, just with more tools in the arsenal. And then we have this third narrative that's really about a bigger fundamental shift in the way not just machines, but also humans are, going to think and learn and interact in the future. So I think this third one is really about becoming more synergistic with AI in a manner that makes the distinction between humans and technology so fluid that it becomes almost indistinguishable. So this is one of the brands that we created during our sprint experiments. It's a brand called Squad, and Squad is a skincare brand for Gen Z that we created through the workflow that David had hit on earlier. So today is not so much about critiquing what's right or wrong or good or bad. Obviously, there's a lot of things we change and optimize about the outputs that we see here, but we found during our experiments that we could leverage AI not just as an efficiency technology, but actually as a entirely new medium for brand expression and engagement with its audience. So rather than generating more with less or using AI tools solely for the sake of novelty, we found that we could add greater depth and dimension to static brand assets in ways that weren't feasible just a short time ago, mostly for time or budget or internal capability reasons, and reasonably so. So along the way, something kind of interesting started happening across groups as we built out these brands across more and more touch points. The brands started to sort of become their own characters. We started losing focus on, what they sold and focusing more on how they thought, how they talked, how they looked, how they behaved in ways that more static or traditional approaches to branding usually wouldn't. So, with the power to visualize ideas and actually role play these brand characters, the brands began to take on a life of their own. So, as an example, with Squad and a few clicks and Runway and Mid Journey, a few other tools we were using, we could bring the brand to life in a way that would have taken weeks and a high budget just a short time ago. And our clients could see how the brand behaves in the world in a very real way. So, what was once a static brand pyramid slide with shapes and words, we could now turn into a talking avatar that could run us through the brand foundations. So I'm going to play a snippet of the brand pyramid montage we created for Squad that came to life via one of the virtual brand ambassadors we created for the brand. This was one of the many bots that we built over the last 6 or so months. So while not perfect and filled with plenty of the awkward, uncanny valley moments that AI video tends to have at the moment, you will start to see how the information such as brand foundational elements can come to life in more interesting, dynamic, compelling ways.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor Garcia, and I'm thrilled to unveil Squad, a skincare brand designed for today's young, active athletes. Squad offers dermatologist tested natural solutions that protect, soothe, and hydrate skin under the toughest conditions, making self care as powerful as a winning game.
So this is just one example, and really, we were quite prolific during our sprint activities, and really like again, no right, no wrong. Where are those points, those limits when human intervention becomes necessary? But really, just nothing is off the table. Eyes wide open, and we started to kind of rethink what a modern brand means and entails. So we're living in this age of super content, meaning a brand must be multifaceted to reflect continual nuance changes in culture, meet moments in time with speed, and show up in new contexts almost daily. So we started asking ourselves questions like, what will squad collaborations look like? Who is squad's ideal endorsement? How will squad live beyond the beauty category and extend into other worlds in ways that really feel authentic and seamless for that brand? And just like some of our favorite AI tools, a brand has to be multimodal. It has to be consistent in order to build trust and consumers along their own individual journeys. And AI provides creatives and innovators the freedom to explore that beyond retail and packaging and social and other usual touch points in the brand ecosystem. It gives us permission to play and grants us the freedom to be prolific and road testing brands in many different dimensions and modes of interaction that may overlap with the target's lifestyle. So, the other side of this, amidst all the proliferation and exploration in this age of generative AI, it is paramount that a brand know clearly who they are and who they are not. Uh, that is how brands will avoid getting lost in blanding, or said in another way, avoid getting lost in the flattening of culture. Without a clear idea while using AI tools, it's easy to show up like the 6 images you see here on the left side of your screen. If you were to search a beauty product or generate an image of beauty packaging, very uh, very AI, very blanded, very flat, and really, it's all about knowing who you are in order to show up differently. Now, none of this is a new take on branding, but with the proliferation of branded content in the world and the need for more of it in a short time to meet a moment, those fundamentals of what makes brands great and strong and salient will be more important than ever. So, backing out at a high level, AI lowers the barrier to creating anything. And without having a clear vision or strategy, brands risk creating uninspired experiences derived from what's already done. They also risk diluting the brand's core identity in the process, or just drifting into a sea of sameness. Other brands using AI to make more stuff without knowing why or for who. So, without purpose, AI's ability to generate more with less is actually a race to the bottom for brands. But with strong foundations and purpose, we found AI to be a creative amplifier and an engine for innovation that brands can't ignore. So now that we've explored how AI elevates and amplifies creativity, let's look toward the future. This section focuses on designing products, services, and experiences that meet today's needs while anticipating tomorrow's possibilities. It's about asking how can brands use AI to stay ahead and craft solutions that feel both timely and forward thinking. So, with this mindset, we'll explore the trends we believe will be shaping the near and next. So here we have 8 trends and opportunity spaces, and these represent what we see being some big opportunities for brands to rethink how they connect with people. So, from predicting what customers need before they even know it to creating experiences that feel one of a kind, the potential here is huge. And we'll take a closer look at these trends and the impact that they can have individually. So, first up, predictive branding. So, this is all about using AI to stay ahead of consumer needs. So, imagine a world where brands can anticipate shifts in behavior, and that would enable them to be more proactive than reactive. And this kind of foresight makes brands indispensable, more valuable to their audiences. Another one is hyper personalization. I think this is a pretty common talking point in the conversation that's happening right now. So this takes it further, offering bespoke experiences that feel uniquely tailored to each individual. So this is more than just segmentation. It's about making every interaction feel more personal, more human, more relevant and personal at a on a large scale. Next is emotive AI. So this is about understanding and responding to human emotions and enabling brands to forge deeper, more meaningful connections. Um, we know that there are limitations right now, but with facial recognition, new models constantly fine tuning and kind of dialing in. Like bigger isn't always better. I think there's recently a trend to kind of scale it down with more focused applications and really dialing in on the emotional nuances that AI can detect. We can only expect it to get better. So think about the power of crafting experiences that don't just meet needs, but AI generated assets that resonate emotionally. Finally, extended reality brand experiences that combine AI with the powers of AR and VR and MR to create these immersive brand worlds. So, stacking these tools together unlock entirely new ways for brands to connect. That will blur the lines between digital and physical realities to create these moments that are both memorable and transformative. And then looking out even further, we see some of the more cutting edge applications and opportunities for the usage of AI. So self-driving growth strategies are these autonomous systems that can learn and evolve dynamically and optimize campaigns, help drive growth without constant input. So they are learning and evolving as you are. Virtual influencers, we're seeing a lot of that right now. These represent a new frontier for digital engagement. So fully controlled by the brand, these AI-powered personalities can connect with audiences in ways that feel fresh, interactive, and always on. So I think this is sort of like our squad example. It's a new extension of brand character personality. It doesn't just have to be one either. You could have an army of them. Voice and interaction branding speaks to the growing importance of conversational AI. And as these tools proliferate, creating a distinct, recognizable brand voice will be critical to maintaining relevance. Um, and, again, going back to the kind of traditional brand voice existing as an artifact in your brand guidelines and on one page, a static asset, brands can now design a voice that people can hear and interact with regularly. So we see this being an opportunity to expand the asset toolkit. And lastly, proto-selling playgrounds. So creating these sort of virtual environments that offer up a safe space to test and refine strategies before launching. Um, by simulating market conditions, brands can iterate quickly and make these data-informed decisions, giving them a competitive edge while reducing risk. So synthetic data sets, and as these models get smarter and we get smarter about how we utilize them, sort of creating these environments to proto-sell, prototype, based on these troves of data that we've amassed, could be big opportunities. So these trends aren't just possibilities, they're pathways to redefining how brands create, connect, and compete in an AI-driven future. And with that, I will hand it back to David to take us down the home stretch.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Equally exciting and scary, I think. Is that a way to kind of sum up that last section? So I'll wrap us up here before we kind of get to some questions. What does this all mean for AI as a tool in our creative world? As we mentioned earlier, this is undoubtedly another Macintosh moment for the creative industry. But if we think back, even that moment had its lessons and it had its hardships before it was normalized. So, wanted to kind of leave you all with a few things to think through before we get into a bit of discussion. First off, as this slide entails, three huge elephants in the room to think about that can't go unsaid. We spent a great deal of time internally here diving into the ethics of using these tools. The topics we've covered in those sessions have ranged from ensuring we are using these tools in a protected legal manner for our clients to ensuring that all artists and creators get their fair share. We have a team centered around justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion when it relates to generative AI. We have educated our teams on the biases that AI has, how to spot them, how to work around them. And then finally, we have folks keeping an eye on sustainability when it comes to AI. I'm sure we've all heard those metrics recently around how ChatGPT uses 3 bottles of water to create 100 words and all the hidden environmental cost around using chatbots. We need to ensure that moving into the future, our human and our company values align to how we are using these tools inside of them. So, I mean, really, each one of these deserves its own roundtable, maybe ideas for future roundtables and future content. But really recommend forming teams around each one of these, talking about them internally, educating your workforce on each one of them, and really getting it out in the open as a discussion point for your company or agency. So three kind of key takeaways that we kind of hope that you understand from this presentation. Takeaway one, we consider AI an enabler. It's not a replacement. So as AI becomes less novel, the focus on the human idea and how it connects to human desires, and of course, human touch will rise in emphasis. Without that idea, that human idea, you will fade into that blanding category that Adam was mentioning earlier. So definitely think of AI as another tool in your tool belt, and then how and why you use it is more important than simply using it at all. I assume 30 plus years ago it was novel to say I used Photoshop for this or I used a computer to create this. Over time, using AI as a tool won't be all that cool anymore. And the output and the idea behind it will really be what resonates. We talked a lot at LPK during this entire process around two things. One, the notion of taste, and then secondly, the action of curation. And then I think taste, for designers relies on many interpretive skills between many different things that are learned over long periods of time. It's not something we're born with, but it's something we learn through experience, which is much like curation. It's a skill that we in the creative community are masters of, and you really gain an eye for it as time goes by. So, second takeaway is that, as it says here, is you become creative by creating. Naturally, the more you do something, the better you get at it. I think of some of the advice I was given as a young designer about creating abundance, about creating quantity and volume, having that need and desire to create every day. And the more you create, the better odds you have for making something meaningful and magical. So what's exciting about this tool for us is that by approaching it with the same creative processes and the same fundamentals and the same seriousness and rigor and judgment that we all do on a daily basis, we're all able to create even more and thus get better. So, through that abundance, you're going to learn to curate. You're going to learn to decipher what's good from bad. We've earmarked here internally curatorial skills as a very important skill to prioritize in the future. As Adam kind of mentioned earlier, it's easy to go down these rabbit holes when you're using AI. And unless you have a keen eye on how to tell good from bad and filter your content into useful buckets, you risk never getting out. And then our third takeaway here is it's important to remember that all gains come at a cost. So AI can easily become what we affectionately call here the dopamine casino. So there's this urge when using generative AI to just keep pulling the slot machine bar over and over again to see what comes out next. That can be a very lonely and frankly a very boring process. But human creativity, we know, needs positive human emotions to flourish. We need to retain the joy of the creative process. So if you find yourself using AI and it becomes a joyless or isolated experience, get out of it. Pivot back to an action that sparks positive emotion. You'll be far more creative that way. And finally, want to leave you with this anecdote. So we were reading here internally this recent study done by MIT in an R&D lab at a large U.S. institution. So some metrics here: their AI efforts helped them produce 44% more materials. That resulted in a 39% increase in patent filings, and AI automated 57% of their idea generation tasks that allowed researchers to, I assume, focus on tasks and priorities of different items. So huge numbers, definitely, kind of radicalized their output and their workflow. But, and there's always a but, survey evidence revealed that these gains came at a huge cost. 82% of scientists reported a reduced satisfaction with their work due to decreased creativity and skill underutilization. So kind of leave you here today with, this notion of use AI for sure, learn AI, but don't forget that joy is needed to be truly creative. keep an eye on yourself, keep an eye on your teams while they're using this new tool, and ensure that they keep the same level of creative vigor and excitement that they've always had. All right. So with that, let's get to some questions. So a reminder to our guests, we encourage any questions to be sent in the chat for our panelists. Make sure that they're going um, to have our messages going to everyone and not just the host. And let's get started. I don't know, Adam, have you been scrolling through
Yeah.
any questions that
Yeah,
have
they've
come in?
been
Anything
popping through
interesting?
here. At the top, we have if good brands are made memorable using consistency, what happens when AI generates infinite, ever evolving expressions of it?
It's a good question. You,
That
you want
is,
you want to handle that one, or you want me
yeah.
to?
I mean, I think, yeah, this dovetails nicely out of what you were just discussing around abundance, right? So, big challenge with AI is you can generate a lot in a little amount of time and with a little amount of effort. But in branding, consistency is key, and I think it's also about creating meaning. So, um, if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have strong foundations, um, infinite iterations of it aren't going to help. It risks diluting those touch points. So, I think the key here is really anchoring into those assets, those core what the brand foundations, the brand strategy, having that purpose and a tone of voice and a character that is, solid enough and big enough to expand. And, going back to what we had talked about before around knowing who you are, what is your North Star? If you do know, AI can help you scale and explore new expressions while keeping the core intact. And I think that's really the key.
Yeah, it's that idea of unifiers, right?
Yep.
That I think, one of the cool things just being in this industry for over 20 years now is, we're using AI as a new medium, like you said earlier, Adam, but all of those core fundamentals of branding, of good design, of brand design, are still present and still, needed maybe more now so than even 20 years ago. Um, I also love this idea of memorability and how do you become memorable and the sea of content that we have to consume on a daily basis. And I think some of the experiments that you took us through, Adam, create more sensorial experiences. I think I saw the other day we can now use AI to create senses, and that idea of scent being tied to our memories in ways that are maybe even more so than sight or feel or any of the other senses. So, I think there's going to be some new evolutions in how brands become memorable through using AI's technology.
Absolutely. Another question we have here, what's stopping a brand from being entirely run by AI, and would consumers even notice or care?
Well, right now they can't spell words correctly, so that's probably the number one thing.
Strawberry is solved, many others unsolved. I think really it depends, right? I don't think AI, at least in its current state, can I mean it can run a brand, but will it be an effective brand or a successful brand or a desirable brand? I don't think so, at least in its current state, without a human in the loop. Honestly, I think it's really about balance, and AI can automate processes and speed up the completion of certain tasks in that process, even co-create content. But brands are built on empathy and cultural intuition, things that AI just can't fully replicate. And whether or not consumers notice or care, maybe I think a lot of times, especially at this present moment, yes, they will notice, but other times that it's maybe more subtle, and over time, this gets to that, like the flattening of culture, the blanding effect, as more brands adopt AI as a tool. um it I think consumers will become more adept at spotting the bot, so to speak, and they'll feel that shift. So people resonate with brands that feel alive and adaptive and human and of the moment. So even though AI can assist in that scaling, it can't replace that that chaos and sometimes counterintuitive ingenuity that humans bring to the game.
All right. So looking at the time here, I got one more question. If your social feeds or anything like mine, you've seen that Coca-Cola recently unveiled their 2024 holiday ad, fully utilizing AI. Seems to be some backlash against it, at least in my algorithm and my feed. What's your take on that, Adam?
I've only seen stills from it. I haven't seen the actual commercial, but I think in general, we're treading this fine line where uh the audience is feeling the impact of too much tech everywhere. And if the emotional resonance or storytelling or nostalgia, especially with a brand like Coca-Cola, is falling flat, then there's going to be backlash.
Yeah, I saw one comment online that I think put it well. Like the ad is fine. I'm sure that team internally was very proud of using all these new tools to produce something as polished and global as a Coke ad. But um, at some point they're gonna need to create some new magic. At some point they need art, not just production. You won't be able to just kind of like rest on the laurels of being able to just produce something so quickly and so efficiently. You're going to need an idea to spark and engage consumers' imaginations in new ways. So
Totally. I think also, like, AI, it shouldn't be the headline. The idea, the storytelling, that's the most important part, and brands need to use AI as the tool, not the crutch, not the headline, and never at the expense of what makes a brand's campaign magical.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. And to kind of round us out here, a few closing statements. So, appreciate everybody's questions. Great discussion. We'll be sharing out a recap recording of the session in the following days. So, please keep an eye out. If we didn't cover your question, just reach out, set up a meeting to discuss further. Our email addresses are in this deck, or go to lpk.com. Book some time with Adam and I. I'd love to discuss whatever's on your mind. Our roundtables be taking a pause through the holidays, but look out for more exciting content coming in the new year. So thank you all for your time today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all.